It's already started. Ooh. Whether this is over or not, I'm getting in the bathtub at 7.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's good to see so many hopping on here. I imagine we're gonna have a few more join. But for now, I'm just gonna mute you. For now, we're just gonna go ahead and get started. And my hope is that tonight's will be shorter. I know I went over a lot of information the last couple weeks, and so tonight we're going to be going through kind of how to put it together into daily practice. I feel like we have quite a bit of time to kind of visit the race fueling specifics, and so if there are more questions about that, please let me know, and we can, maybe we could have like a quick pre-race refresher or something before the first race of the season. But for now, we're going to talk about like the daily fueling, because the fueling on the go is the number one thing I hear about from the athletes I work with. And I work with a lot of teenage athletes. So tonight I have several examples. Thank you for the one team member who submitted an example. I really can't believe nobody took advantage of that, because you could have gotten like your specific scenario answered. But I'm always happy to answer your questions, and I hope that tonight's presentation kind of walks you through putting this all together in real world terms. So my screen should be popping up here pretty soon. There you go. And this is I always like to include pictures of myself. This one is me at the top of Mount Lemmon. For those of you who don't know Mount Lemmon, it's outside of Tucson. It's one of my favorite training places. I'm actually headed there in a couple of weeks for a training camp, and it's a huge climb. It goes through, I think, like 6 different climate landscapes. So you start with like the desert floor, and then you get into like high grass prairie, and then you get into rock features and alpine, and it's crazy. But it's a big ride. So I had a sag wagon, and they brought me a shake, and there's a little convenience store at the top that I grabbed some refuel options. So I always like to share some of my strategies to stay fueled throughout my training as well. So just to revisit real quick, okay, we've seen the plate, we've seen it numerous times. This should all be review for you. Hopefully you are using the plate in some form by now, because this truly is one of the simplest ways to make sure your body can handle all of the training that you're throwing at it. A variety of food is what makes up a healthy athlete. Remember that some foods are used purely for fueling the activity, so simple carbohydrates, that kind of thing. And then others, build durability and are more for away from activity. So the fibrous veggies and, higher fat protein, that kind of stuff. Timing is important with this, and we will kind of talk about that in some of the scenarios we visit today. Remember, there are different versions of the plate. So if you have a harder training day or a race day or, game day, if you're in other sports, that plate is going to adjust to allow for more carbohydrates to fuel that work. And then if you have an easy training day or an off season day, then we want to really target more of those durability foods. And one more thing I'll mention about these plates is I had an athlete recently asked me, well, so how do I know like how to adjust this if my appetite is, bigger or smaller? Well, these plates can adjust your appetite. So if you picture like just a regular size dinner plate, if you're not as hungry, that plate could shrink down. And if you're hungrier, that plate can grow. But you want to try and keep the proportions relatively similar depending on what you have ahead of you as an athlete. So that's just another trick that you can use when you're looking at these plates. Okay, remember this graph. This is simply showing you when you eat different types of foods, some of them stay in your body and your digestive system longer than others. So make sure that you are planning ahead here and really incorporating foods that tend to work well with your stomach depending on what you have ahead. If you're eating right before exercise or you have a nervous stomach, maybe it's before a race or something, then you want to stick with those simple carbohydrates on the left side of the graph. And then away from workouts, we really want to build out the rest of those items. And again, this is all in the plate, so this is nothing new, but this just shows you how to kind of adjust those food choices as you're getting close to exercise. Okay, so this slide basically has like all of my ideas for fueling on the go. I did create a handout with this very similar information. I'm happy to provide this exact slide. If you like this list and the way it's laid out, I can provide this to you as well. Just let me know. But the handout that I provided has all of these items on it, and really take a look at this. I mean, there's a whole column of things you can carry in your backpack that you do not have to refrigerate. Of course, I hear a lot of athletes that are carrying granola bars and, trail mix and that kind of thing. But, we can start getting really creative. How do we build it out to make sure you have other kinds of nutrients, not just kind of carbohydrates to carry around with you? Carbohydrates are important, but if you need a snack, maybe at, you know, 10 a.m. on a school day, you're going to want it to last a little bit longer. You don't want to just eat carbohydrates. So that's where like nut butter packets are really handy. I love shelf stable milk cartons, or there's plant-based milks as well that are shelf stable, and that just means they don't have to be refrigerated, so you could carry those with you. I provided a recipe for energy bites that was on one of the handouts that's in Team Snap. So go ahead and look at the under pictures. There's nutrition graphics, so you can find it there. As far as protein items go, I know I get a lot of questions about that. We got the shelf stable milk, trail mix will help, but then like think about jerky and that kind of stuff too. If you're traveling in the car, maybe you're driving to the start of a race, or you're driving somewhere, you're going to go on a bike trip, you can have a cooler with ice packs and get really creative. This is where a little bit of planning ahead will help. So you could make pasta salads, pinwheels. I love those things. You can make sandwiches. You could take yogurt cups. I mean, there's tons of ways. I love leftover pizza to take with me as I'm heading out to a ride or on a road trip. So think of those ways that you can just plan ahead a little bit. What do I have lying ahead? Am I going to have access to refrigeration? How does this look for me? I love pictures, and if you're a picture person, here you go. So all of those things I just mentioned on that previous slide give you an idea of how you might put this together and the different items you could bring with you. So again, we have a mix of carbohydrates, protein, fat, and fiber, all of the things your body needs to stay well fueled and to satisfy a little bit longer. So you're not just eating simple carbs all the time, which is a very common mistake that I see young athletes making. So Protein is one of the hardest things to get on the go. And that's because if you think of protein foods, we have meats and beans and dairy foods and eggs. I mean, a lot of those require cooking and or refrigeration. And so it gets harder to find protein foods that you can take on the go. I see a lot of peanut butter and seed butter in athletes rotations, but I don't see a lot of like other protein foods. So I compiled some items here that you could consider taking with you. These are great to take on the go. I have met a ton of teenagers that are loving these chomps, like these meat sticks. Those are fine to bring with you. A protein bar, of course, will work, but you really need to look at the label there and see how much protein is in it. Some of these protein bars are really overkill, like they'll have 20 or 30 grams in a bar, and maybe you should balance that out with a little more like carbohydrates or a fruit or something. But some of these bars are very reasonable. You'll get like 10 grams of protein, which is a really good target when you're thinking about a snack or something on the go. I found these little hummus cups on Amazon. You can order them. They're shelf stable. They don't have to be refrigerated. And some of these things, we want to think of anybody who has like food allergies or, anything like that. You have to be careful about ingredients with some of these items. So just look at labels. Again, I included milk beverage and plant-based milk. I like the plant-based milks that have like 8 grams of protein per serving. That's really close to just a regular dairy milk. Some of the plant-based milks don't have as much protein. So again, flip it over and look at the label. If it has, less than 2 grams of protein in it, you want to try and see if you can find another protein source. And there are plenty of plant-based milks out there available to you to have that. This picture of this really unappetizing PB&J bagel sandwich was my first and only trails challenge. Thank you, Coach Mike. I climbed 5 Mile Gulch up to Ridge Road, and man, and this was, I mean, after I had done that was after I had climbed Lucky Peak and ridden across the ridge and then climbed up 5 Mile Gulch. So I was like cooked by the time I got this sandwich, and it was just so delicious. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed having this like dripping bagel sandwich at the top of Ridge Road. So some of my tips for getting more calories in some of these to-go items is really, embrace nut butters and seeds and that kind of thing, because they will have protein and fat and they'll be very filling. So if you have a nut allergy and you can't have that, there's a great product called Sun Butter. It's made with sunflower seeds. It tastes really good. So you could try something like that. And there are other options out there depending on what kind of dietary considerations you have. I like making bagel sandwiches because you're likely to get probably 100 more calories out of a bagel sandwich than you will just a regular 2 pieces of bread. And that's just due to the density of the bagel and the size. And it's really quite a bit more calories and carbohydrates than just a standard 2 piece sandwich. So if you're looking to like, hey, I need to bulk out my day a little more, bagel sandwich will do it. Find a high calorie bar. If you need specific brands or suggestions, I can give those to you. But again, it's really just looking at labels and then mixing up flavors. Sometimes we get overwhelmed with a lot of sweet things. That can cause us to not want to eat as much when we're training or kind of we're on the go and we're thinking about like taking snacks with us on a ride or something. So think about ways that you can get some salty options. I put a picture of medjool dates on here because they're one of my absolute favorite training foods. And yes, they have to be medjool dates because they have a very specific texture and flavor. They're literally like caramel, but they're a date, so they're a fruit. I like to cut them open and put like a salted cashew or almond in them, or just sprinkle them with salt. So you get like a salted caramel. They're amazing, I promise. And then also just training your body to accept fuel a little more frequently will help with all of this. So we'll talk about that a little more in a second. I wanted to share this picture because that very same photo that you saw at the very beginning where I talked about being at the top of Mount Lemon, this was my shopping cart for that training camp. Now, keep in mind, I was training for triathlon, so I had 3 sports to fuel for, but this was just a week and I ate out a couple times. So this is how much food I packed. And I put a little list here just in case you're curious, like what kind of food, what did you make with this? I mean, for me, it was, I need to have things that I can take on the go. So I had bread and a jar of peanut butter and a jar of jelly and some bananas. I had PB&Js a lot. I had some shelf stable shakes. I had all kinds of, you can see the trail mix front and center there. Um, Basically, I have a perfect bar in there. Those are really good. So basically anything that I could just grab or like throw in a tortilla or throw on a sandwich or throw in a bowl at the end of an exhausting day or when I was in transit between workouts. So this I think can be really helpful for you. You know, I know that you're not preparing, dinners or anything at home. Maybe you might be. I hope you're helping with that. But if you're not and you're like responsible for your own lunch, or maybe it's a weekend and nobody's really around, so you've got to make food for yourself, think about ways that you can put the items from the plate in a very easy, maybe portable option. I love wrapping things in tortillas. You can put like hummus, chicken, and a little bit of veggie in a tortilla, wrap it up, maybe put some extra, drizzle of some yummy sauce in there, and you're good to go. That has a really good nutrient packed snack. And again, anything can go into a bowl. And rice is super easy to cook. Pasta is super easy to cook. So you can kind of build out bowls from there. So now into our scenarios that I heard from um, some of our participants. Let's see here. So the first thing we have is single track Siggy has trouble fitting in breakfast. His appetite is low most mornings. He doesn't feel like eating much. He wakes up about 20 minutes before it's time to leave for school and never seems to have enough time to sit down to eat. So Siggy is also very hungry for lunch and finds that he's thinking of food most of the day. Sometimes he has trouble concentrating in school because his stomach is growling, and he can usually get through his afternoon ride, but he's starving for dinner. So when I hear something like this, I'm thinking, man, Siggy is not eating enough, and it's starting with breakfast. So what are my suggestions? I'm going to give 3 recommendations for each of these cases that if this person was coming to me as my client, this is what we would work on. So the first thing is trying to make that breakfast time. I know it's going to be hectic, y'all are busy and you're tired. And so let's find ways to make breakfast just a little more doable and find ways that they're portable. I love overnight oats, and I do have a recipe I'm happy to share with the team. You just put like dry oats, some chia seeds or sunflower seeds or nuts or whatever you want to put in it. You can put some dried or fresh fruit in there. And then I use either milk, or you can use a product called kefir or kefir. It's like a drinkable yogurt. Put that in there and mix it all up, stick it in the fridge overnight, and you literally just have a portable, delicious breakfast that's loaded with nutrition to take with you, and you can eat it with one hand. PB and banana sandwich with a protein smoothie. Again, you can do like the shelf stable kind or something quick. I can talk about, protein powder options if somebody is curious about that. But, in general, you could literally take yogurt and fruit and a little bit of juice, blend it together, and you've got a protein smoothie. And then microwavable breakfast burritos. So you could make these ahead of time and stick them in the freezer if you love being in the kitchen or your parents do. Or you can buy some frozen burritos for in a pinch, zap that in the microwave as you're finishing putting things in your backpack, and it's ready to go. That's a one-handed breakfast as well. The other thing I would recommend for Siggy is to start training his body to accept fuel a little more readily. So start early in the day, every day, try and keep a similar eating schedules most days, even weekends, and wake up just a little bit earlier. I know you all hate me for saying that, but just 10 minutes can make such a difference for your digestive system and your ability to fit in more nutrition. And guess what? You are going to feel more energized and less tired because you are eating more throughout the day. So then I would want Siggy to eat a larger lunch. So I know that breakfast is going to be hectic and he might not be able to fit in as much nutrition as we want. So we're going to bulk up lunch a little more. Maybe if he's eating school lunch, he can get double portions, or he can build that out a little more. I've worked with Bronco football, and I'm telling you, those football players need food, a lot of food all the time. And PB&Js were like the magic thing. If they could carry PB&Js with them, they were good. That would help meet their calorie needs. So I'm going to tell you the same thing. It has really good nutrition. You're getting fat, protein, and carbs. Most teens I meet love PB&Js and they don't have to be refrigerated. So consider that. And then adding a bag of custom snack mix, which is one of the handouts that is in Team Snap right now. Okay, so fueling challenge 2. So we have climber Chloe. She eats regular meals, generally gets a variety of food. She knows that healthy eating is important, so she gets plenty of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, dairy, protein. Gosh, she's a healthy eater. Chloe noticed that she's always tired and super hungry after her rides. So as we talk a little more, Chloe is also very busy and highly involved in extracurricular activities. She has a budding dog walking business on the side. She volunteers at the animal shelter, and she is in advanced classes at school, so she's busy with homework and tutoring. All right. So when I hear Chloe's story, I'm thinking like, okay, she's a very healthy eater. She's getting a lot of the foods on the plate, but sometimes that can cause some athletes to not get enough. We're going to talk a little more about underfueling in a later module, but just keep in mind that sticking to only healthy foods will oftentimes cause athletes to be underfueled. I'm also picturing her dog walking, playing with the animals at the shelter, being very busy, go, go, go. She's probably not getting very many snacks, and she's burning more calories than just 3 meals are going to provide her. So my 3 recommendations for Chloe. I want her to see the Fueling on the Go handout. Again, that's in Team Snap. So take a look at that. I want her to eat a pre-ride snack, no exceptions. This is a non-negotiable. I want her going into that ride well fueled, and I don't want her going more than 3 hours without eating. This is another really common issue that I see with young athletes is this like, go from lunch to maybe I'll have like a single piece of fruit or something in the afternoon, and then I'll go do this big ride. And maybe some athletes will have 2 sports. I know riding with Nika, I'll see athletes coming straight from cross country practice and going on their ride. So maybe there's 2 workouts in there. I want there to be ample nutrition to support all that activity. I also want her to plan ahead. Man, she's got a lot going on. So all it takes is a little organization, maybe on the weekends, maybe with the help of parents, to portion out some snacks, kind of talk about what are we going to have for the week, make a list, a grocery list, using the handout, the Fueling on the Go handout, or that custom snack mix, and see what you can put together so that you have it ready to go in your home. And then make sure you're bringing 3 or 4 snacks with her throughout the day. I also want Chloe to add some processed foods. I want her to be drinking juice or adding some dessert or including some higher calorie options like chips and that kind of thing, because that will give her more calories per bite. And that is beneficial for athletes that are underfueled, especially if they're very busy and they just don't have a whole lot of time to eat. They're going to be better off if they can get fewer bites and more calories. And then make sure that we're using sports foods for activities. So the third one, we have Graham the Grinder. He loves to eat. His favorite foods are carbs, carbs, and more carbs. He often has cereal with milk for breakfast, a peanut butter sandwich with chips for lunch, and whatever his family makes for dinner. So Graham's favorite snacks, oh, look at this. It's carbs, popcorn, chips and salsa, bananas, applesauce packs, and Teddy Grahams. He has a big appetite and eats a lot, but never seems to feel full. I want you to go back to that graph that shows, the lines and the satisfaction over time. If he's only eating on the one side of the graph that has the carbohydrates, he doesn't get any meaningful satisfaction throughout his day. So, what are my 3 recommendations for Graham? First, I want to build out those meals. So, if he's having cereal with milk for breakfast and he's like, that's all I'm going to have. Well, let's see if we can add some eggs to it. Can we add like a full fat yogurt or something to kind of give him a little more to make it through the day? Maybe at lunch, I want him to add like a little more protein. So a jerky would be okay. Maybe a pudding cup that actually gives you really good carbohydrates and a calcium serving. And then maybe drinking milk or a milk substitute with his meals, because drinking calories can be a really efficient way for athletes to ensure hydration and get a little more nutrition. We're going to add protein, fiber, and fat all day long. Again, the eggs, full fat, milk for breakfast, making custom snacks to mix and match. So I have that custom snack mix handout, and then adding nut butter and banana, or maybe he could make nachos instead of just eating the chips and salsa. So we're getting a little cheese on there, maybe some beans or something. And then because it seems like Graham tends to be kind of stuck with the same foods, maybe we want to branch out a little bit. Let's try adding some beans in a quesadilla, or some veggies in that quesadilla. See how that tastes. Maybe he could try hummus. There's lots of different flavors of hummus. There's different kinds of dips in general that would kind of build out, if he's wanting something crunchy carbohydrate, maybe if he dips it in something, that will help him kind of get a little more nutrition. And then hit the bulk bins, that custom snack mix handout that's in Team Snap. If you go to Winco and you just fill up a bunch of bags with some different items and then create your own custom mix, it's really popular. I've had a lot of success with that with athletes because you can make it your own flavor. You can put only the things you like to eat in there, and you can still get a nice balance of nutrients. So finally, our last one is Flyin' Flora has been diagnosed with low iron. She doesn't understand why, since she eats plenty of meals and snacks, and she loves nuts and yogurt and fruit mostly. Flora has started learning about iron foods and recognizes that she should be including more of them, but she doesn't know how. It's hard to eat meat when she's on the go so much. And this is another common one. We talked a little about protein earlier, so I'm going to use some of those ideas for Flora. I'm also looking at, nuts will have some iron, seeds will have some iron, but yogurt and fruit is very low iron. So if she's relying on nuts and yogurt and fruit for a lot of her meals and snacks, she's going to have pretty low iron intake. So I want her to embrace iron foods. Actually, dried fruit would have more iron than fresh fruit. So we might want to steer her toward more dried fruit. She could have fortified cereals and enriched bread. Those will be good iron foods as well if she doesn't have access to meat. Canned beans are super easy. You can drain them and rinse them and add them to a salad or put them in a wrap really easily. That will give you some really good iron. And then what about those packable proteins that we just saw earlier in the presentation? Vitamin C foods with iron foods will help you absorb the iron. So I want her to drink orange juice with her meals. I want her to add tomatoes and peppers to sandwiches, or maybe have berries on the side because those have really good vitamin C. I want her to eat potatoes with dinner because those have good vitamin C. And dinner time is often when athletes will get a little more protein. And then I want her to add workout fuel and hydration. And part of this is because I suspect people that have low iron tend to be underfueled, period. So I want to start really boosting her energy availability around her workouts. I also want her to hydrate better because athletes who are dehydrated tend to lose more iron. So we want to get that hydration status up and really help give her body every chance of restoring that iron status. And then I want her to have a post-workout refuel option. Remember, we talked about this in the last module that after exercise, we really want to make sure we get the protein and carbs in there. If you're going straight home to eat dinner, that probably will work. But if it's going to be an hour and a half before dinner's ready, or you have some traveling to do, or you have homework to do, you don't have a lot of time to eat, I want you to be ready with some kind of refuel option right away. So putting it in action, I want you to peek at the handouts that are in Team Snap, and I want you to select 3 snack options to carry with you for the rest of this week. You might have to ask your parents to grab them from the store, or you might have to kind of sleuth through the pantry and see what you guys have, but pick 3, and I want you to carry them with you. How are you going to use these? Are these between classes? Are they pre-workout? And then I want you to share with a teammate or a coach how that worked out for you. How did it feel to have a little extra fuel on board? Did you find that it was easy to carry these things, or did you run into challenges? You still need to refine that. So that is all the information I have tonight. It's still a lot, isn't it? It looks like I have a couple questions in the chat. Let me look here. How much protein per pound should an athlete be eating in a day? I would probably, I mean, a good ballpark is about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. That's pretty good ballpark for athletes. You could still be perfectly healthy with a little less. It's not going to hurt you to eat a little more. And my question to an athlete who's interested in the grams of protein, how are you going to track that? Because I don't love the idea of tracking calories or using an app or getting into numbers too much, because I find that, a lot of athletes want to do it perfectly. They want to nail it, right? I'm going to get an A in how much protein I eat or how many calories I eat. And that can turn really problematic very quickly. So it would be better to approach some of these strategies. I promise you, if you start adding in some of these snacks, if you build out your plate to look more like the athlete's plate, you're going to be meeting your protein needs. And then what's better, jelly or honey to go on a peanut butter sandwich? It's up to you. What do you like? Because they both have carbohydrates, they both taste really good, and you're going to get that sugar combination with the, protein, fat, and carbs that you're getting from the bread and the peanut butter. So it's really up to you. I personally like banana with peanut butter, and that, has some other nutrients. So you could make a trifecta too. You could put banana and honey and peanut butter all on a sandwich and enjoy it. So, any other questions tonight? Hey, if you have questions, you can always reach out to me. Check out the handouts on Team Snap. Let me know what you think. And, if you see me at Pivot, maybe tell me how the whole carrying snacks went for you this week, because I would love to hear it. Okay. Have a good night. Thank you for coming.